Loony listeners, this is episode 5 of Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. I'm one of your Sleepless hosts, Ray.
And I'm one of your Eyelid-less hosts, Connor. This week, we have speculation of a possible Punisher Netflix appearance. Issue 5 of Lemire, Smallwood, and Belaire's most recent run. Morpheus' character profile, a review of his first appearance in Moon Knight, Volume 1, Issue 12. So grab out your issues, sit back, relax, and get your conchu on.
Connor, we had a bit of news that came right after we kind of literally finished our previous episode. We had a lot of information last episode 4, which was so much fun to go through. But there was, as you mentioned in the intro, there was another new bit of news that kind of sprung up about the Punisher TV show.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad it didn't come last week because that was a big week. But yes, during Marvel presentation at Asia Pop Comic Con in Manila, is that how you say?
Yeah, in the Philippines.
Pronunciations. Right. Senior Vice President of Creator and Content Develop announced another Marvel hero may be showing up in The Punisher.
And look, it wasn't totally kind of revealed that it was Moon Knight, but it was a lot of speculation. So this kind of got all the Moon Knight fans a buzz.
Oh yeah.
And it kind of makes sense that that Moon Knight would appear. Looking at the possibilities, look, number one, Karen Page is already in the show. That's, without a doubt. So there's always the connection with Daredevil popping up somewhere, and the fact that the Punisher has been in Daredevil season 2. I mean, so that kind of makes sense. Also, weighing up against that is the fact that the events of the Defenders has Daredevil, spoilers, anyone, out of commission. So, you can kind of, go either way on that one. And what was the other one they people were saying probably Iron Fist.
Yeah, because while Daredevil's now out of commission, it's sort of revealed at the end of the Defenders that he's sort of becoming the protector of Hell's Kitchen, like he did around the Civil War period when he actually wore the costume.
Yep. So I mean, we can definitely see Finn Jones popping up and crossing paths with Frank Castle, but the best bit of speculation I guess we were looking at was that there's that obvious military tie between Frank Castle and one Mark Spector, a mercenary. So I'm not sure, Connie, have you seen the teaser trailer for?
Yeah, that was very military focused, wasn't it? And
yes.
That seems to be we now have the episode titles released in Morse code on Twitter, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, and even more so. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and that was very sort of all military focused. So I think, yeah, that's a rather good possibility. I think my main thing is, from what we've heard about the Punisher and sort of Netflix in general, is it sounds that this Punisher series does sort of want to establish it by himself. I think these showrunners really want Frank Castle to have his own legs outside of the Defenders and Daredevil. So I really do think that it's actually much lower on the scale to see Iron Fist, and I don't think we'll see Daredevil considering he's fairly out of commission. So yeah, I'm definitely thinking a new Marvel hero. We got Moon Knight. And the only other sort of speculation that could work would be Nighthawk. But I think that'd be crazy to...
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, I think that'd be crazy not to give us Moon Knight, though. I think fans are banging at the doors for it.
Yeah, Moon Knight versus Nighthawk is great. Look, I've enjoyed I enjoyed the David F. Walker run, but
sadly. Too
short, like 6 issues or something. But if you put them side by side, Nighthawk's kind of like a C-list character compared to Moon Knight. I mean, Moon Knight isn't exactly A-list, but he's a bit higher than the Nighthawk, I think. Yeah, so I totally agree as well. I think they are, when they were talking about the Punisher show, they were making an effort to say how standalone it was against the Defenders, and how this is a totally different show because it's got a guy basically essentially without any powers. And if you look at Moon Knight, he I mean, literally, you could say the same thing as well. He doesn't really have any powers apart from that Volume 2 run.
Which
And when he
everyone
got
seems to want to forget.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. If you ask me, I'd like to see it as just like a separate reality or something. But yeah, true. Also, being bitten by the werewolf as well. That was only very brief in his early run. But apart from all that, he's really just essentially a guy running around in a costume with weird gadgets. So he would be a good fit. And yeah, I definitely see the Punisher being set apart from the other defenders. I mean, I don't know. I can't even imagine the Punisher up against the Hand. It just seems a bit too crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think they go that route. And I think the fact is demand's so there. You kind of don't want to sort of crush expectations with, you know, how lofty Marvel Netflix is at the moment.
Yeah, it's they're definitely doing really good stuff with their shows. You know, despite what some people say.
Yeah.
Look, I really enjoyed the Defenders. I really enjoyed Iron Fist as well as all the others. So I think they're doing very well at the moment. Just one of the other points that did come out, there was a second, like, when this when this article hit, there were a few other identical articles as well, but there was one other one which kind of added a bit more fuel to the fire. By having, I think they announced that Shori Agdashlu has recently joined the Punisher cast, and she plays a psychiatrist. So, if you again look at Moon Knight, there might be a tie there with his mental condition and there being a psychiatrist in the Punisher show. I mean, you can also argue the fact that the Punisher pretty much needs a psychiatrist as well, right? So we might be clutching at straws there, but it is good to speculate on.
Yeah, well, there's I think we'll know whenever we get name confirmation because the Ellis Wood Bun run had a fairly prominent psychiatrist in that you know, some deadly plot details turned out to happen with her. So
That's
you know,
right.
if we see a name, then we might actually have confirmation. There was I mean, he's had a couple of psychiatrists, but there was the one in that Civil War issue as well of the Houston run.
Oh yes, the one of the ones that we featured on the reading list
Yeah.
that Moon Knight kind of tricked into getting registered. So there's definitely a lot of psychiatrists along Moon Knight's way. So speculation abounds with a psychiatrist on the Punisher show. The other article, I guess, Connor, that we came across was, I guess, adding on to this that, you know, Moon Knight might be featuring finally on screen somehow. There was another article, I can't remember who it was by, but they speculate...
Comicbook.com.
Comicbook.com, okay. And they had a list of 5 actors who could portray Moon Knight in Netflix. Now, we've kind of had this little game happen or pop up every now and again, as well as to, you know, who you'd like to fan cast in Moon Knight. I know on our group page a while ago we had a little fan casting thing for Marlene and Crawley and Frenchie, but they have 5 actors listed here, Connor, for Moon Knight.
Yeah, well, actually probably a lot of orphan black actors in here, which is my favourite part. But yeah, the first one they suggested was Dylan Bryce.
Yeah,
I only know from Orphan Black.
And how do you see him being fit into Moon Knight or Mark Spector?
It'd be interesting to see him take a different role, but I think he captures the Stephen Grant personality really well, but I'm not so sure about the Jake Lockley and Mark Spector side of things. Actually, I'm a bigger fan of the next on the list, the Michelle
Houseman. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's a Dutch actor. And he featured Orphan Black and on Game of Thrones as well. Just Houseman, I think, would be he's got a bit more of a rugged look. So I could see him both as Jake Lockley and Mark Spector. Basically.
Yeah, he kind of has like that mix of sort of charming and ruggedness. What about you?
Dylan Bryce. I can't. I can see the Stephen Grant and maybe the Mark Spector. I did watch Orphan Black, but it's been a while ago now. Wasn't he like an undercover operative or something there as well?
Yeah, he was working for that the male clone sort of company
Yeah.
in season 3 or whatever.
Okay. So I kind of perceive him as a little bit of a like a Mark Spector as well, but
Yeah.
I can't see him as a Jake Lockley, to be honest.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. That's what I very much like about the sort of suave and ruggedness of whose name? That's right.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think with Mark Spector, or Moon Knight as a whole, I think, although he's got to act as Stephen Grant, he really has to have that kind of rough, not as beaten up look as Frank Castle, but I don't see him as a pretty boy by any means.
No.
Although like he is kind of drawn sometimes, and as kind of your really dapper kind of guy, and that's the guy Stephen Grant is the guy who Marlene really has fallen in love with. But yeah, Mark Spector on a whole, I think is got to be a bit more rugged. So yeah, so how about the third one? The third one they've got listed as Josh Dallas from Once, I think is that
Once
like,
Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time, that fairy tale kind of TV show, right?
Yeah, yeah, and we were just talking about like sort of Mark Spector not being a pretty boy, and he kind of fits a bit too much in the role. Like from what I've seen, of course, he's a good actor; he'll fit the role. But from everything I've seen him in, Once Upon a Time, Thor,
Yeah,
he's definitely
Thor,
played
yeah.
the pretty boy character.
And he was like, was he Fandral in Thor? One of one of Thor's mates. He got replaced by Zachary Levi, I think.
Yeah, I don't really remember him at all.
Yeah, well, I think he was Fandral, and if he was, Fandral was kind of like your Robin Hood, dashing sort of fellow. So, yeah, again, not really a good fit for Mark Spector, I don't think. Maybe in a few years, I don't know. He kind of looks kind of too fresh faced. The next one is an interesting choice. What did you think of J.R. Ramirez?
I haven't seen him in anything. I like the look of him actually. I think he could be a. I think in the depending on what he's been in, I think I could actually trust him as a Moon Knight. But it's just sort of the problem. I don't know what he's been in.
Well, yeah, he's been listed in like two shows which I don't follow, which is Powers, I think, and Arrow. He's got a bit, to me, from that photo on the article, he's got a bit of a Colin Farrell look, although a bit more of a South American kind of background, or Latino background. But yeah, I'm with you. I just don't know too much about him. I don't know, how what his roles are and how he acts. Look wise, he can pull it off. I don't think there's any problem with that. But yeah, I think he's kind of in the same boat with Josh Dallas for me. Pretty much like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, he's apparently appearing in Jessica Jones season 2, so I guess when that drops, we can report back to you on his acting ability.
Well, if he's in Jessica Jones season 2, then you can kind of rule it. Ooh, unless it's Moon Knight.
No, according to this, he's playing someone named Oscar. So I sadly don't think so.
Damn. Well, unless he does a what's the name? How a couple of actors in Marvel that have played two roles. Unless he does that.
It was first he played. Oh look, I don't forget the main woman in Luke Cage.
She was Black Mariah, but I can't remember her real name. But anyway, I doubt then he'll actually make the cut for Moon Knight. How about the last one? The last one is the most interesting one, and I had a little chat with Paul on the Into the Night group. And I agree with him. Actually, Paul was saying that he could see Ryan Eggold as Mark Spector. What are your thoughts?
No, I definitely agree. He sort of fits that same thing as whose name?
Yep.
He's sort of like from the roles I've seen him in. I've sort of seen him play a very sort of dark and serious character and mix it up with a much lighter tone. So I think he played well. He's been in The Blacklist, Already
Is
forgot
that
what else he was in.
is
Yeah,
that where you saw him?
Yeah, he played. Tom Keane was the husband of the main character, and he played a very interesting and well acted role in that
Oh,
show.
cool.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, like, I haven't seen it, but I did jump onto IMDb, and Paul posted up a few photos of him, and yeah, he definitely looks the part. I mean, mainly because he was beaten up in a lot of the photos, so he's got those, the band-aids and the scars on his face. I don't know, so he kind of looked like it, like Mark Spector, but also as well in the Blacklist, he's played against James Spader, who's Ultron in Age of Ultron. So there's a bit of a Marvel connection there. So you never know whether that will help him or not. But yeah, definitely Ryan Eggold. Anyone else that you can think of, or who you'd like to see fan cast as Moon Knight?
Ooh. Since we're there, I think Rick in the group recommended Michael C. Hall, which I think would be an interesting choice. I think,
from Dexter.
Dexter.
Yeah, he'd be interesting as well. He was a lot of people wanted him to be Daredevil. There was a lot of talk before the casting of Charlie Cox. There was fan casting of who you'd want to see as Daredevil. A lot of people tagged him. I guess mostly he's got the red hair as well, but he's got the acting chops. I take it from Dexter.
Yeah, I mean everyone kind of wants to see Jake Gyllenhaal as well, which would be amazing.
I think he's
an incredible actor.
Yeah, it'd be the number one pick, I think. But then again, I'd like to see him playing, but he'd be more suited unless he goes into TV. I just see him as a cinematic actor, right? I don't think he'd play unless they give him a lot of money to go back to TV. He's got the good look for it, I think. Who else was I was thinking? I always come back to this guy. He played Oberon in Game of Thrones. He was he was the guy in Game of Thrones that fought the Mountain, that guy, and he ended up, it was a horrible death. It was one of the most shocking. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, no. Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, that guy. I reckon I reckon he'd be pretty good. He could either play Mark Spector or get him onto his Frenchie. I don't know. I don't just put a moustache on him. I reckon he'd be well suited for the role.
Yeah, but gotta come back and do a bit of a fan casting for the rest of the cast. No one seems to want to give Frenchie or Marlene the fan cast.
Yeah, I reckon we should put up a poll again on our group and put it out to the fans out there who you'd like to see. Like I said, I might even dig up the old ones, and I had some photos happening there. But it would be really interesting to see. I'd love to see Marlene on screen and Crawley on screen, even Gina as well. Gina would be interesting. At her diner with her two sons.
Yeah, that'll be, I think, very important to the Netflix sort of street level.
And actually, also as well, just thinking, you posted, Connor, I think, up onto the group as well. There was an IMDb thing, which came up late in the week. It was titled Moon Knight, and the year was 2022. And do you remember that one?
Yeah, it was a really strange fan cast of a bunch of it was definitely sort of a fan cast of an actual movie in the alongside the big guns in the MCU, and it had a lot of really sort of strange roles, and I think this person's sort of own original characters. But it had two interesting bits I really liked. One was actually Dave Franco was a possible Mark Spector, and Gwendolyn Christie as Khonshu, which seemed strange, but when I thought about it, I actually kind of fell in love with the idea.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. I thought exactly the same as well. That was the standout for me. It wasn't so much Franco, although he's kind of got the look as well. But I was way more interested in Christie being Khonshu. That would be just that'd be weird. And I do know her from Game of Thrones, and she's fantastic in it. So that would be a really cool choice, I think.
Yeah, because it's really just sort of a in a suit with a massive bird head. So.
They'd have to keep the bird head. I think I'd love to see the bird head on screen. They can't lose that. But yeah, Gwendolyn Christie, even if it's her own voice and and her face pops up every now and again, that would be really cool. But a very interesting. Can anyone post things up on IMDb? I found it quite
Yeah,
strange.
anyone can, and they'll instantly sort of write up something if it's a rumor, even if it doesn't have confirmation. It's yeah, IMDb isn't always your most trustworthy source. It can be, but yeah,
Yeah.
be
That's
skeptical.
yeah. I mean, like the write up was a bit hard to follow as well. I thought. So I think it was whoever posted it up was kind of quickly put it up. So there's not much credibility to it. But hey, look, it's a bit of a fun read, I guess. And the writer as well wanted it connected to Doctor Strange, I believe.
Yeah.
He wanted Scott Derrickson to direct it, and I think there was a cameo there by Benedict Cumberbatch as well. So tying in the mystical with Moon Knight, I think was that fan's wish.
Yeah, so it's kind of been we kind of have, if true, possibly big news this week. It's been an interesting one with with Punisher. Yeah.
You reckon it'll be this week?
Oh no, I was just saying, sort of like this week in general has been an interesting write-up.
Oh yeah. Oh
Well,
no, yeah, definitely.
We'll have to find out soon, though. May not be this week, but it's a whole really 2 months away now. We're looking at November for a Punisher show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they haven't really given a definite date, right? But we know it's November.
Yeah.
But they're still kind of holding those cards close to their chest as to the actual release date. So, typically, if we work backwards, November, we start getting the main trailer, a couple of weeks before release?
Yeah.
So we're looking at mid-October to get something. But yeah, obviously before that, we might get a bit more information onto the cast and maybe even some set photos, stuff like that. So yeah, so exciting times. I mean, I can't wait for the Punisher as well. Although I'd like to see some reference to Moon Knight.
Yeah.
I'll be enjoying these 13 episodes, right?
Yes.
13 episodes of the Punisher, so that'll be pretty good. Apart from that, Connor, there's not much else. I know news-wise, you also posted something onto the group about a rabbit.
Yeah, quite possibly the best news we've had all year is that a rabbit up for adoption in where is it? I think New York.
Yeah.
Is a little rabbit called Moon Knight.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing.
That's fantastic. Our Moon's Knight of Vengeance is a little rabbit somewhere with a wiggly nose. Anyway, you'll get to know loonies and listeners as well that Connor and I and our third host Rebecca is are very much animal lovers. So anything to do with animals is great. Moving right along, we have our book reviews.
Yeah, we're moving straight on. That's a nice bit of news, but now it's time for the big guns.
And as always, we've got 2 books to review today in this episode. And as always, we'll introduce each of the reviews with a bare bones, which is basically a summation of the story. Then Connor and I will each have our 4 main aspects to the story. What we found were kind of major points in the story for discussion, and then we'll finally rate it with our Crescent Dart ratings. So, first cab off the rank is actually the final part to the first arc that we've been covering over the last few episodes. It's Moon Knight Volume 8, Issue Number 5. It's titled Welcome to New Egypt, Part 5 of 5. It was released the 3rd of August 2016, and it has a slightly different creative team, with regulars Jeff Lemire on writing, Greg Smallwood on pencils, and Jordi Belair on colours. But this issue has, excitingly enough, guest artists James Stocco, Wilfredo Torres, and Francesco Francavilla. So this was a visual treat for any comic book reader. The bare bones for issue number 5 is as follows. Stopped at the entrance to the mysterious pyramid by what appears to be himself, Mr. Knight attacks the classic costumed Moon Knight after Marlene is coaxed to follow the mysterious imposter. Mr. Knight manages to stab Moon Knight, but is quickly countered, and Mr. Knight can't help as Marlene is whisked away. Mr. Knight follows the trail of blood, but what follows is not what he expects at all. Deep in the pyramid, Mr. Knight arrives at a tomb door where the trail stops, but as he enters, his world changes. Finding himself no longer Mr. Knight and in the pyramid, but in fact on the moon, Mark Spector has to immediately escape from the sounds of growls and space wolves, which lead him through another doorway. Beyond this, he comes out the other side as Stephen Grant, and now on set of some production, with Marlene surprisingly there to greet him. The reunion is short-lived, however, as the familiar faces of Billy and Bobby, the hospital wardens, attack Stephen, forcing him through yet another door. Again, his world is upended, and we now see Jake Lockley on the seedy streets of New York, late night no doubt, and in a far less salubrious part of town. Despite the different world, Billy and Bobby pop up again to cause grief, but Jake manages to elude them once again via a third doorway. Reality returns to Mr. Knight, and he is once again confronted by the classic Moon Knight visage and the creature underneath the mask. It is Khonshu, and the deity's plan of wanting to possess Mark, both mentally and physically, are revealed. Mark Spector refuses, and to escape it looks as though he would prefer death over submission. He flees out of the pyramid and willfully leaps to his death, after which there is only darkness. Mark finds himself abruptly awake and is Stephen Grant in a bed. Marlene is there to wish him a good morning, and as Stephen Grant looks over the New York skyline, he can't help but shed a tear of joy at what he finally considers for himself some sort of inner peace. So that was issue 5. First thoughts, Connor. What did you reckon?
Shocking, crazy, and incredibly well paced with all these incredible artists.
It was a real... I remember when first reading this and just being hit each time with the new art. I thought it was just groundbreaking, actually. I'm sure it would have been done before, but I really, really enjoyed this. So what would be one of your 4 main aspects, Connor?
Well, I think probably the big sort of turning point outside of 3 whole different new realities, and possibly my favourite part of the run to come is a sinister reveal with Khonshu. With Khonshu being in the other Moon Knight sort of suit, not so much his personality, and it seems that Mark has just been a pawn really for him trying to get out of the other void. You know, he's enchained Seth, and who knows what's involved with the asylum, the mental hospital. But yeah, it all seems this has been one big ploy for Khonshu to be able to enter Mark's body and escape the other void and become one with our real world.
Did you so when you saw the big reveal, like were you shocked, or was that like a big reveal for you? Because for me, like as well, it was one of my aspects as well, the reveal of Khonshu, which is an important thing, but it was really weird because I remember when I first read it, I wasn't totally shocked at it at all. It was kind of like, well, yeah, I would have pegged Khonshu as the main guy behind it all anyway. You know what I mean? I mean, although he was kind of, in issues 1, 2, and 3, he was kind of guiding Mark. I guess it's because you have these opinions of him beforehand anyway, having read the earlier series. You know that you can't trust him, or you know that there's always some sort of sinister or ulterior motive to what he does. So when it was revealed at the end that it was Khonshu, I was kind of like, oh yeah, of course. Like, yeah, I wasn't so. I wouldn't say it was disappointing, but I don't think it had the bang for your buck that it was meant to for when I read it.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I do like that, because you know how at the beginning of this issue and beforehand it's a classic Moon Knight, right? And we discussed in the previous episode, oh, who is this guy? He, this is Moon Knight versus Moon Knight. Is this another part of Mark? Is it his personality? And then for it to be Khonshu, I don't know. I thought it was a little bit obvious, perhaps. But still a very good point. And what we do get out of it though is, what I was asking was, and as you mentioned, Seth, was that what has Khonshu kind of done, right? He's kind of beaten up and left Seth there, and he's taken over. And so what I was thinking was that, okay, so the pyramid and the jackals and the sand in New York City, that stuff still is Seth, right? But it's just that Khonshu has taken it over. Is that what you thought?
Yeah, well, I did find the reveal of him actually being in the Moon Knight suit disappointing. I was hoping it was two different entities, but yeah, I mean, I knew Khonshu always had a second plan, but I really, when I first read this, and I suppose even then, it almost seems like they're heading into a holy war, and Mark was going to be sort of his main warrior. So when it was revealed that Khonshu had no plans of fighting a war, but just he seemed to already have won his domain, and he sort of has control of Mark, I actually found that really interesting.
Yeah, and he wants to. He kind of, I think he mentions that he needs Mark. He basically wants to possess him, right? Because I think he's losing his hold on, I guess, whatever. Well, that's the thing with the other void, right? In the other void, he's losing his vessel, so he kind of wants Mark a bit more completely, I guess. It was a good point, I think. I'm just flicking through to where we see. I do like the look. I'll tie this into my one of my main aspects, and what I wanted to talk about as well. If we look at the reveal of Khonshu, so it's kind of on page 14 and 15 when he takes off the mask. What I really found interesting was. Okay, I'll go into the layouts. I thought the layouts to this issue were really good, and each artist was very distinct. So it wasn't only the visuals, like the art style itself, but I really enjoyed the panel layouts. So what I gleaned from the reveal of Khonshu, if you look at that page, the panels go from a full panel across the whole page, and you see the classic Moon Knight sitting on the throne with a bit of blood. And then you see the panels gradually get smaller and smaller, and as they get smaller as well, it kind of closes in on the figures. So the second last has basically the head of the classic Moon Knight, and the last one has a real close up of Mark Spector's eye. And I like how the panel. So what Greg Smallwood has done is really kind of concentrated and focused it by reducing the panel size. But not only that, as again you can see as you turn the page, and and you get still there's a lot of jagged paneling, and a lot of Greg Smallwood's art in this issue has disjointed and fractured panels. And what I associate that with is that Mark is not sure what's going on. Like he's still kind of a bit up in the air as to what's happening. So that's kind of reflected in the layouts. And then as you turn the page, and as Khonshu explains stuff to Mark, you see the panels are more regulated, and they're a lot more solid. So he's starting to get an understanding. And I don't think this is an accident by Smallwood as well. So he's kind of laid these out so there's some sort of stability there. So previously where Mark was wondering what the hell is going on, the panels are very chaotic, whereas now they're a bit more, there's a bit more order to them. And as you can see, as he goes, he jumps off the pyramid, and then he goes and lands. You get very gorgeous page. You get just a very, very solid layouts. So all that in mind, if we flick back through the different artists, I wanted to just, I thought was really great about this. If we go first to James Stokoe, as Mark goes through, Mr. Knight goes through the first tomb, as you can see that page there, he walks through following the blood. It's all very disjointed, right? Because he doesn't know what's happening. He's kind of following. As he goes to the next page, which opens up with him basically on the moon, James Stokoe's only got two pages, right? He's only got
Yeah.
2 pages to do his stuff. So you get a gorgeous half of the page is a full spread of him opening up in the moon to kind of show the vastness of where he is. And then the panels are very regular. So he's got, he's walking towards this door, and then you basically get very straightforward panels of the wolves chasing him, and then before you know it, he's through the door. Then if you look at Wilfredo Torres's next, as he comes out as Stephen Grant, you get very solid panels. So and again a nice big juicy panel there to show Marlene and Stephen Grant. So it's all very kind of very standard there. And then finally, if you look at Francesco Francovilla's, what I find interesting as well is that apart from the gorgeous colours that he's got, I just love this art because it's very evocative of a particular age. You've got, like, if you look at the 3 pages that he has, Connor, he's got your typical full panels, but he's got like a round panel, and as you move across, that circular panel bounces around the page. So it's quite playful. So the first page of Francovilla's art, it's on the right, and it shows a close up of the door. Then it goes up, and it shows a close up of Jake Lockley getting grabbed by Billy, I think, or Bobby. And then the last one, you see, it's down at the bottom left where he actually clicks the button to open the door. So so very different uses of layout, I think. But I found it very clever how they incorporate it into each of their characters or personalities.
Yeah, well, that was my main 2 aspects was sort of both Lemire's story beats and then the artistic pacing. So when you brought up before about Smallwood's sort of disjointed art, I really love when you look at it, it's actually like puzzle pieces. There's a lot of sort of corners missing of different parts. It sort of is very disjointed as he moves around the tomb, and then by the end when he meets Concha, it's very sort of clicked in and very simple, like lines of 6. Well, 2 lines of 3. Whoops. And then I think I love when we're moving to the art, just the way the story moves. So he's had this big fight at the start, and as he moves through the first door, that big vastness of space has no sound but a speech bubble, and it's the moon. It's very quiet, so you've just gone through this big fight, and the first thing it does, you can almost like hear the silence as you hit that page, and there's just nothing as he stands outside the door.
Very good. Yeah, definitely.
And then it gets so frantic again with the space wolves, and then the door closes, and once again it's a moment of peace. Before we move to the next page of Torres's art that leads him running into the Francovilla, which is very playful, but I'd also say very frantic. He opens on the page with the sound, but immediately it moves to a fight between Lockley, Bobby, and Billy. That's very moves. You can just tell very fast across the screen until we hit the final revelation, which is another sort of open, and it's a speech bubble goes like stop ? As he's back in the tomb as Mr. Knight. And it just flows so well. We always talk about how these Lemire issues go so fast. It's just because there's just the way Lemire works with artists. There's always just such a clear flow of narrative that you don't. You can stop and admire every single panel, but at the same time you gain everything just by the way the creative team has worked together to set it up for you. Mind blowing.
It is. It's fantastic, and it goes back to, I guess, that question we were pondering about the direction that Lemire has for his artists, like how much direction, because it looks very solid and very consistent. So you'd have to think that Lemire has really specific instructions for his artists to kind of follow. Just going back to the Francesco Francovilla as well, I totally agree with you about there being a franticness to it, because if you look at it, it's just there's an overstimulation of, there's a lot happening,
Totally.
There's different colours, there's smoke or steam coming off, there are bright lights, there is signage everywhere. Definitely there's a sense of just, this is in a seedy part of New York, and it's just a buzz with everything, and then you got the the lady there as well, trying to solicit something from from Mark. From Jake, but you're right, and then the action just picks up. Billy and Bobby, there's just constant movement there, and then with the syringe. So that was a great point, and I loved actually what you were saying about James Stokoe's. There is definitely a sense of silence, isn't there, in that first page as he opens and goes through that door, and he's on the moon. It's just it kind of adds to it, not only the vastness of him being on the moon and there just being predominantly black like space. But yeah, the minimal dialogue really gets to it, and then contrasted to when the space wolves come, you can see their bubbles are all jagged and they fill up a lot of the page. Yeah, so great points there, Connor. Far out.
What about your next aspect then? While I took up my bit of 2 aspects.
No worries. One of the other main ones. Is more towards the end of it, and it's when Mark kind of releases himself from Khonshu. So he decides, I'm not going to be controlled by this thing anymore, and it just shows like how desperate he is to kind of get away from him. That he would actually basically kill himself, than to rather than be controlled by this guy. So Khonshu's obviously had a massive impact on Mark's life. Well, you could argue that it gave him life after he was left in the desert. And there has been so much of a dependency on Khonshu. Again, if we look at the older volumes, Connor, of we covered, or we discussed actually in the group, Midnight Man. And when the statue was broken, it actually gave Mark a mental breakdown as well, because he kind of relied so much on Khonshu. What was interesting here was that, Lemire wants Mark to just be, well, the way Lemire writes Mark is that he just wants him to be free of Khonshu. It's almost like a curse. So I found it very, very poignant, and quite powerful how he runs away from Khonshu, leaps off the pyramid, and as you see him, and as you see him kind of falling down, he's reminiscing, and there's a great little bit of artwork by Smallwood again with another style of him just with his friends. So you got Crawley, Frenchie, Marlene, and Gina just having a good time. So it was quite sad in that respect. And then the next page, him just dead. Lying down and then consumed by the sandstorm. I thought that was a very powerful way to end, in apostrophes the story. But it was great.
Yeah, and I sort of love that. That's actually a great way. This one is, a lot of people recommend this as an introduction, but it's so worthwhile for long-time Moon Knight readers, because you don't need an explanation of Mark monologuing about how Khonshu has ruled his life. It's just a yes, and then the look of emotion on his face when he says no and just jumps. There's no monologue. You know this as a character. You know what he's been through.
Yeah, and you kind of feel for him as well so much. So it was quite sad. I thought, that point. How about your third point, Connor? Aspect.
Yeah, well, that was I sort of combined the two with the artistic and story pacing, and well, my last one then was just this ending, and you get to the page where he's dead in the sand, his head's cracked open, there's blood, and he's just swept away, and I thought, that's the end, and then the big reveal at the end that he wakes up as Stephen Grant with Marlene and the Torres.
Yep. Yeah, that was my final aspect as well, and I think it was a nice little clever way to end it, or as an epilogue. Or actually, no, it would be an end, because it would be the ending. You wouldn't consider Mark dying as the end, because this being the final aspect, I thought this was really great. It kind of still left you a little wondering as to what's happening. Although at the same, I know, weird to say, but at the same time, there was a sense of closure to it. Like that last page when Mark opens the blinds, and he's silhouetted, but he's silhouetted in total white. You can see as he opens the blinds to look at New York. Then to him to look out and obviously see the city. There's no pyramids, there are no flying jackals. And then he kind of has a little tear come down and he smiles to himself. There's a bit of closure there that it's almost as if, when I read it, you kind of think, okay, had he been dreaming all this? I know it's very tropey, but had it all been a dream, and had it been also symbolic of him kind of making peace with these personalities that he has? That's how I took that ending.
Yeah, well, oh, sorry, just an interject. Yeah, I was I was very much the same. You know, it's not really the end because all that crazy stuff happened, but it almost feels like a new door opening. Like that, this is the end of such a specific part, and we've sort of opened to a whole new part where New York is there, and we're not sure about all this crazy sand happens.
Yeah. So, did you take it as well as Mark, or now it seems like Stephen is the dominant personality here because he wakes up as a Stephen, right? Hang on, let me just double check. Yes, he calls him Stephen. So yeah, he wakes up as Stephen. But did you see it as him being exorcised from Khonshu?
No, I think he's I think just the big reveal of him being such a villain. I think very much I got the sense that Khonshu's he's sort of escaped from Khonshu, but in sort of the next door over. You know, he's closed the door, but Khonshu's there banging to get in, breaking in, and it'll sort of be Mark on the run now.
I guess that makes sense as well because he ran away from Khonshu, but you don't actually see Khonshu dying or destroyed or anything like that. So he has escaped him. Yeah, I definitely I can see your point. He has escaped him, but Khonshu is still there somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's just such a crazy opening for what's to come next.
Yeah, no, definitely. So that was the first arc, which was a fantastic story by Jeff Lemire. I've got just a couple of little additional notes I wanted to add in, just little queries and goofs. I thought, I thought at the beginning, like, why does Marlene go towards the classic Moon Knight, right? The Moon Knight who we know now as Khonshu, he's kind of taking a hand, going, "Come follow me. Don't listen to this guy. He's insane." Did you wonder why she followed him? I thought she was gaining more clarity as they went towards the pyramid.
It's almost like she wasn't really there at all, and just sort of this. Yeah, no, it was really strange, and we never got any closure of that in this issue.
It might have just been maybe an oversight, or maybe just the fact that she is just still a little confused, and the fact that they're both Moon Knights. I mean, you gotta wonder. So maybe that was it. The other notes I had were the space wolves, or what I call the space werewolves, because we always associate werewolves with Moon Knight, obviously from his origin, and I'm just wondering. This, I think, is their first appearance. Like, where have you come across them before, Connor?
No, I think this is very much Lemire's opening of a whole new little bit of a mystery for us to explore, I think.
Because there was in Volume 1, I'm aware of Moon Knight, there was an issue where he lands on the moon, but that was based on he was affected by some drugs, and I think he was basically hallucinating. That was a good issue as well. But there were no werewolves there, but he was definitely on the moon, and he was fighting these moon kings, I think he was seeing them as. So I thought maybe that was a slight reference to these space werewolves were a slight reference to that. I don't know. It was very weird and very cosmic. The only other thing as well is that in Mark Spector, towards the end of that run, with Seth Falcone, Falcon, I think, and there was a whole cosmic thing with the Infinity War there to do with Mark as well. Yeah, so Moon Knight has touched upon the cosmic before, but this is the first time I've seen space werewolves. And the other notes I had was we see what I found very striking was Marlene wearing a red cloak when Mark becomes Stephen Grant. Did you pick up on that, or?
Yeah, I didn't quite get what was going on there. I kind of assumed it was part of the set, but
part of the set. Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, I'll put it down to maybe two things. I thought maybe there was a connection there. I first thought that there might be some sinister connection there because we've seen red used before.
Oh, that's true.
Like in the issue before, Khonshu was in the toilet cubicles and that was all red, and so red seems to be a theme. And also at the end when Mark jumps from the pyramid. Obviously, there's some blood there, a bit of red. I also thought as well it could be a like a reference to Red Riding Hood, because again the wolves. I don't know. I just thought that was a strange costume that she'd be wearing. Yeah, and the other note I had was about Seth. We actually got to see Seth the first time, and he got roundly beaten by Khonshu, and he's just he's left in the corner. And yeah, I think what I mentioned before was the questions of was it Seth who actually constructed that pyramid in New York and all those Egyptian kind of jackals and sand? Was it him and Khonshu taking over his work, or was it indeed Khonshu who constructed it all? I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, that was sort of the big tip-off to me, that Khonshu very much wasn't gone, and, there was still a big thing. I think the existence of this other void, overvoid, and sort of, what it was, and the fact that, Seth was told to be the big bad, but he was chained, and then we have no idea whether Khonshu was working with Ammit in that mental hospital, and
true. So I'm hoping we can see a bit more of Seth somewhere. He does sound like an interesting character. He was kind of used in a really weird way in Mark Spector, Moon Knight.
Really need to read that one.
But nothing like, it's very 90s, but nothing like the Seth that you see in this issue here. So I'd like to see Seth like we see him here as well. I think that'd be really cool, just to get the Egyptian gods happening. I think that'd be really, really cool. So that was issue 5. That's been wrapped up, so we'll be starting the next one next episode. But before we do that, Connor, we have a little something. Oh, sorry.
A bit of a rating.
Ratings, yes, of course. What would you rate it?
Oh, I mean, this issue was just hit after hit with the pacing, and I think I was a bit more affected than you with the Khonshu reveal, so it was all sort of blowing my mind. So this is a definite 6 out of 5.
Oh, awesome! 6 out of 5 crescent darts.
That's
Lovely.
The one.
I'd have to give it a solid 5 out of 5 crescent darts. I really did enjoy this. Despite what I said about the reveal of Khonshu, I think that the art makes up more than makes up for it. It was a really, really fun issue. It was a really good way to end the arc as well, because sometimes writers have problems finishing off stories. They kind of just flatten out, or they go for too much. But this was great. A steady 5 out of 5 crescent darts for that.
Oh yeah, well just can't wait to dive into this next part. We have so many questions and a whole new beginning, it may seem. So yeah.
It'd be great. And I think that, obviously, the next one as well, it's built around all those guest artists as well.
I don't think Smallwood's even on the next arc.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, lovely. Well, I'm not lovely. I do like Smallwood. Well, lovely that there's we got all that talent in that one book. Okay, so moving right along, before we actually go to our second review, we did promise to do a character spotlight. And this leads really well into our second book review anyway. So, kind of we were looking at Morpheus.
Yes, the wonderful but kind of short run as we found villain. A very tragic villain as well.
And his history is very kind of sketchy. Look, before we go into that, Connor, you've got a list of appearances.
Yes,
Yep.
Morpheus first debuted.
Yeah, debuted.
Yeah. In Moon Knight Volume 1, Issue 12, where actually a lot in this sort of first 12, 15 volumes was very much sort of villain after villain, just the hits keep coming. There was always some sort of, almost like a monster of the week, sort of a slasher.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The werewolf, so this seemed like another one of the lineup of his supernatural escapades. He had, after that, he would next make his appearance in the second half of the run that very much became more arc-orientated in Moon Knight Volume 1, Issue 22 and 23. My favourite issues of that first volume. It's fantastic. It deals a lot with all of Mark's personalities, and Morpheus is a very very intense, very scary villain where Sinkovich's art went to a whole new level of
Yeah.
displaying the hallucinatory powers of him.
Well, yeah, he kind of develops his powers in that, doesn't he, as
Yeah.
well? Mm.
And yeah, and from there he sort of took another slumber.
Hmm.
He appeared in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, which is like its encyclopedia, no real story.
Hmm. Yep.
And then he appeared as another sort of one-issue villain in Fist of Khonshu.
Oh, he did he? Okay.
Yeah, in the third issue, he was the big bad of that issue.
Oh, okay.
It was just another take a tumble, go have a slumber, Mister Eyelid-less man.
Yeah, that's it.
And then the real sort of surprise I found that I never knew about, he had a issue appearance in Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme Volume 1, Issue 18.
Ooh, I'm going to have a little read of that. That'll be interesting. And it makes sense as well because one of Doctor Strange's villains, Nightmare, is all about sleep and nightmares within that. So it would kind of make sense that Morpheus is in there too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't quite have a look at the issue, which we may even cover on the show one day, maybe. But yeah, possibly they're the connective tissue he might even.
Okay. And then,
oh yes, and then
oh, yeah.
the sort of the biggest run he had was a part of as Ray was telling me, Resurrection War issues 1 to 4. Which, if you'd like to give a little explanation.
Oh, look, yeah, I haven't read it in a while, but I was just quickly having a look at issue 4 because I wanted to see a bit more Morpheus just before we went on air, and I was just reminded of the gorgeous art in there. It's really good. It's basically look in a nutshell. For some reason, all of Moon Knight's rogues galleries are kind of resurrected or brought together, and by this kind of dark god, and they want they obviously want one thing. They want to kill Moon Knight. So it was a little fun 4-part romp where it's actually quite dark, and it's written by Doug Moench, and the pencilers I've got here is Tommy Lee Edwards, and
Ooh,
I was meant.
yeah.
Oh, do you know him?
Yeah, he's pretty prolific with incredible works.
Oh, okay. Because I mentioned to you briefly just off air that I kind of got the sense that he was a bit like a Mike Mignola, like not. Yeah, it's if you put them side by side, they probably don't look like each other. But I don't know.
Yeah, he actually did issues of Hellboy. Actually,
did
I just
he?
found. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Reporting, lovely, good stuff. But yeah, that's what I thought. It looks very, it's very Mignola-esque. Very beautiful art. The colors are great as well. So definitely worth a read. I think one of the Loonies as well. Oh no, that was for High Strangers. Yeah, no, don't scratch that. This is definitely worth a read. It's a nice compact story. And Moon Knight looks kick-assy. He's got red eyes. It's really cool. But Resurrection War. It's got all of them. It's got Black Spectre. It's got Morpheus as well. I think it's even got Randall Spectre and Bushman. So it's got them all in there. So it's a bit of a fun one to read. But yeah, and then finally, Connor, you've got here his Morpheus appears in Fear itself, Fellowship of Fear #1.
So like a tie into that big event that I haven't read. And
yeah,
hidden an issue, so he must have been pretty small.
Yeah, just the one issue. Yeah, I haven't read it as well. It's been on my list for a while, but you know how things always seem to pop up in the way. So I'll get to it one day. But yeah, so he appears in a fair few of them. I'm hoping Morpheus appears in more because he's a very interesting character. As the Marvel Universe guide goes, Robert Markham was born in New York City, and he suffered a viral infection. So he went to seek treatment to a Dr. Peter Ulrone, who happens to be Marlene's brother. And Peter treated Robert with an untested drug, but it as everything in the Marvel Universe with drugs and chemicals, it didn't go well. And it actually horribly disfigured Robert into this beast that we see as Morpheus, and it actually deprived him of sleep. So one thing, it gave him no eyelids. He's got these big bug eyes, and I thought that was really funny, but it actually makes sense because if you can't sleep, if you have eyelids, you kind of can, but if you take the eyelids away, then you can't sleep. So this drug changed him, changed his physiology as well, and he developed these psionic powers, which is basically ebon energy. And the other final little point was that he, because he has a lack of sleep, and because he can't, basically, his mind can't dream and can't kind of process all. You know how they say people dream, and it's a way of kind of getting rid of the garbage, kind of and resetting. Since he can't do that, it kind of drove him insane. So that's what's happened to Morpheus. And if we look at his powers, Connor, how do we best describe his powers?
It's almost sort of this tangible, like, dark energy field. It was said that apparently humans have this psychic need for dreams, that when that doesn't happen, we go insane, but this untested drug formed them into a tangible black power that recharges whenever a night cycle happens that he doesn't sleep. So yes, it's this physical, dark energy of physical form. Imagine a field that, as long as Morpheus wills, it can take any form. It can be an explosive blast. It can be a whip. It can,
It's very, it's very multifunctional, I thought, as well. Maybe not as clearly defined, but I do love the idea that Morpheus is basically kind of like a battery. So, the longer he's awake, is that the longer his ebon energy will build up, and then it comes to a point where he has to release it, and he runs out of it as well. So we'll see in issue 12, he actually runs out of ebon energy, and he has to kind of recharge. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that constriction for Morpheus. Otherwise, he's a really powerful dude, right? If he has just that ebon energy, on whim, then he's pretty powerful. But yeah, the ebon energy seems to be quite undefined, because as you say, we see it in issue 12. It can be seen as explosive or even just a concussive force, kind of like Cyclops's what do you call them?
Eye beams.
Eye beams, yeah, his eye beams with the ruby quartz. They seem quite concussive, but then also as well, we see in the issue, it kind of like, if you're zapped by it, you kind of, I don't know, Moon Knight described it as being very cold. So it kind of, I don't know, zaps you of body heat or something.
Yeah, I think it's almost like, waking up in a cold sweat, like that you've lived through a nightmare by being hit by it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. That could be it. And also as well, he uses it almost like, I likened it to Juggernaut. He has it almost like a force field around him. So you see in some of the issues, he gets shot at by cops, and Moon Knight throws a truncheon at him, and it just bounces off. So he uses it in various ways. Also as well, he uses it almost like webbing. You saw that in issue 12, Connor, how he kind of swings away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the ebon energy is a very versatile power that he has. Morpheus is able to do that in later issues as well. Kind of in those issues 22, 23, he actually develops something else, right? It's he can actually cast illusions in people's minds. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. It's almost like a scarecrow type. His sort of fear toxin. It's just, except more controlled. He can will inside the heads whatever is their deepest, darkest fear that he can control. So in those issues 22 and 23, it was actually Mark's other personalities out to get him.
Yeah, right. So yeah, very similar to Nightmare, I reckon. I think Nightmare does something similar to that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, in the Doctor Strange corner of the universe.
Fake.
Was that sorry?
Said Nightmare, more like fake. He's nothing but a big old copycat.
Yeah, exactly. So Morpheus is quite a powerful, quite a powerful being.
Nightmare came first. Never mind.
Sorry,
I said Nightmare came first.
Oh, okay. So, actually, have we mentioned who created Morpheus?
Yes, that was Doug Moenick and Milsakevich.
Oh, both of them. Oh,
yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, they must have copied then. Must have copied Nightmare. No, I like Morpheus. I think he's really good. is a bit tragic, like he's a tragic figure, but he's also, you know, mad as well.
Yeah.
He's crazy, and again, that's a running theme with a lot of Moon Knight's villains. They're insane as well. So everyone seems to be insane. Yeah, so that's Morpheus. Any other? He was named. He kind of self-names himself, right? So he kind of calls himself Morpheus, which is named after the god of dreams in Greek mythology.
Yes.
And what else have we got here? Yeah, that's just and his death. So we're not too sure, right? In Fear itself, if he actually, I thought I read somewhere that he died.
Well, does Resurrection? Do any of the villains in Resurrection War get like returned from the grave? Because he may have died in the Fist of Khonshu. Sorcerer Supreme, Fisher Khonshu, and then was resurrected in Resurrection War.
That makes sense. Yeah, I believe. I'll have to read it again, but I believe they were all kind of resurrected. Yeah, so they were all killed at some. So yeah, he must have. Yeah, he must have died at either in Fist of Khonshu, or Doctor Strange. So, Loonies, if you can chase that up, or we'll chase that up as well and see. But definitely a very interesting character. Okay, Mr. Connor, we have review 2.
All right, it's time for some bare bones. This was issue 12 of Volume 1, The Nightmare of Morpheus, released on the 1st of October, 1981, with writer Doug. Doug.
I'm sure he's not.
Oh god. Bill Sienkiewicz on art, Joe Rosen letterer, C. Shield colorist, Denny O'Neil editor, and Jim Shooter, who was the editor-in-chief in Marvel times before he ran out to Valiant.
Yes, big name in Valiant.
So our bare bones, Dr. Peter Alrain.
I have no, yeah, I think it's Alrain or Alrain. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Marlene's brother ponders over the guilt he bears for his patient, Robert Markham, who has gone horribly astray. Just as he decides to report Markham to the police over the phone as missing, an intruder breaks in and reveals himself to be Markham himself, now totally crazed and disfigured. With mysterious dark powers, Markham, calling himself Morpheus after the Greek god, assaults Alrain, but before he's able to finish the job, the police arrive and Morpheus flees into the night. Marlene hears news of her brother now in hospital and pleads to Grant to accompany her to see him. Peter slips in and out of consciousness, but sadly, as Marlene and Stephen arrive, he falls into a coma. It is not long during their visit that Morpheus returns to presumably finish what he started. And as he attacks the hospital police guards, Moon Knight springs into action. Morpheus proves, however, too much for Moon Knight to handle, and he makes short work of Moon Knight using his versatile airborne energy. Airborne? Yeah, whatever. Mm-hmm. Moon Knight licks his wounds and returns to the scene of the crime, Alrain's office, to try and dig up information on Morpheus. He is greeted by Detective Flint, a seasoned, wary detective, who rather than get in Moon Knight's way, assists him. Flint gives Moon Knight vital information, and the thankful White Knight leaves the office in search for Morpheus. Meanwhile, as Morpheus becomes more and more crazed, he decides to rob a bank, which is easily detected by Moon Knight. The two clash again. For a second time, Morpheus beats Moon Knight effortlessly. Moon Knight vows to do better and chases Morpheus into a zoo. And after an intense fight, where both seem to win at some point, except for the time there was a panther, Moon Knight lures Morpheus towards an electric generator. Feigning injury, Moon Knight tricks Morpheus to shoot energy at the generator, and as Moon Knight had hoped, the electricity negates Morpheus' airborne energy, rendering him powerless and at the mercy of the Fist of Conscience. Morpheus is arrested and brought to Seagate Prison, where he is sedated, actively keeping Morpheus' airborne energy under wraps. Moon Knight forges a friendship with Detective Flint, and as the story ends, Peter Alrain wakes up from his coma, much to Marlene's delight. So, Ray, thoughts?
Thoughts? Yeah. This was a fun like one shot, as you mentioned, part and parcel of the Monster of the Week. So it was a nice tight story. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Morpheus is an intriguing, slightly crazed, and you have to kind of wonder a bit at his actions. But yeah, there was enough there to kind of keep you interested, and it was great to see Moon Knight up against like a powerful villain, I thought.
Yeah, and probably my favorite part of this was a very tragic villain. You know, he's a
Mm.
very powerful, but you sort of see at the very start he's always got this, sad hidden tragedy that is going more and more insane and beyond hope.
Yeah, it's sad as well that maybe in the future to flesh out this Robert Markham. What was his viral infection, or what was it that he was sick
Yeah,
from?
it never said in the comics, so yeah.
No, no. So yeah, he's definitely a tragic, and to be horribly disfigured as well, and you'd be mad too if you had treatment and having that done to you, and then not being able to sleep and going mad. So yeah, there's a lot of empathy for Morpheus. Yeah, what did you think? Did you like the art?
Yes, I love Sinkovich. In general, is a great artist, but I
Mm.
think not only is Moon Knight his shine, but the crazy sort of look, which is where you can see where he was part creator of just how he looks and this very distinct creature of the night is just perfect for its art, and he crafted it in such an incredible way that makes him probably one of my most memorable from this run, especially when I talked about issue 22 and 23. But yeah,
Mm.
yeah, the big bug eyes with almost the starry sky in his
Yeah,
eyes.
it's weird, isn't it? It kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, generally you can kind of look at a villain and kind of sense where it's kind of come from. He's been affected by this untested drug, and all of a sudden he's got these bug eyes, and he's got these like scales down his nose and around his eyebrows. It's
Yeah,
a very strange design, but it is definitely memorable, I think. And yeah, the art. Oh, we'll get into the art. That's actually one of my aspects again. But yeah, Sinkovich is really really good with his art. He's starting to really come into his own, I think, with not only portraiture of characters' faces, but just background stuff as well.
yeah. So, would you like to start us off on your first aspect?
Okay. Yeah, I'll. Yeah, my first aspect is basically the introduction of Peter Alraine, Marlene's brother. I think this is his first appearance as well, and he's got quite an important one because this story basically hinges on his actions. So he's the guy, as we've mentioned before, who creates the creature Morpheus by accident. He's trying to help him, and he's trying to treat his patient. He's racked with guilt. I mean, the first couple of pages, he's wondering, oh gosh, should I just report this to the police? He shows that he really cares for his patient. But yeah, it was good to see another member of the Moon Knight family, so to speak. So he's kind of connected to Marlene being her brother.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Sort of the very shorthand sort of character building of being able to, interestingly introduce, he's someone who cares and that, he was willing to do something for his patient and he now feels incredibly for because he's basically almost destroyed their life,
Mm.
cursing them.
It's a terrible thing to have on his conscience, yeah. Uh, without spoiling anything further on, he does pop up again. But yeah, I mean, I thought he was important enough because obviously Marlene has a connection to him, and I thought it was a good way to tie in Morpheus to Moon Knight.
Yeah.
How about your first aspect?
My first aspect was the determination of the legendary Moon Knight. I think there's a particular favorite part I always love. That's a bit later in the issue I'm starting with, where he has the mask ripped off.
Yeah, I love
That's
that
such
look
a
as well.
favorite image, and just I love here just the fact he's beaten down basically 3 times
Hmm.
and still continues. And there was a question in the group by Austin, was it, about
Uh-huh.
Blade versus Moon Knight, and
Oh
I think
yes.
you brought up the fact that of just Moon Knight will win against even a more incredible opponent because his just pure determination brings him to win the day, and I think it was just so great seeing Moon Knight to be beaten down and getting up.
Yeah,
It's good.
such a powerful villain, and I think very, very much akin to Daredevil in the fact that you see it's kind of fleshed out in the Netflix series how Daredevil never gives up and how he was kind of brought up by his dad, Jack Murdoch, to always stand up, and that recurring theme of him spitting blood while he's on the ground and kind of getting up. I think that's very similar to Moon Knight in the fact that Moon Knight is kind of reckless as well. It's been mentioned by Taskmaster that he'd rather take a hit than put up a defensive, defend himself. So he's very much a reckless guy, but he'll never give up, and that's what I reckon is a really good point with Moon Knight. And I love the fact that he's up against this villain, this disfigured monster who can literally, if he wanted to, could basically rip him apart. But he just keeps on going back to him time and time again. And I think in the comic as well, Marlene is saying, it's all hopeless. How can we ever beat this thing? And Moon Knight says something along the lines of, what do you expect me to do? Hang up my cowl? I'm not going to do that. No. So, it's almost as if even when he doesn't want to, he's compelled to just keep on trying. So, yeah. I think that's really cool, and I like exactly like you. I love that that torn mask thing. It kind of reminds me of Spidey as well. You see sometimes Spider-Man with a torn mask, and it kind of shows the doggedness of it. I like that. My next main aspect was, I think we've covered this though, was Morpheus's powers, and I think what this issue does, it's a great. There's a lot of great introductions actually to this comic. So you got Peter Alrone, and you also have Morpheus, and it's a good crash course in learning about Morpheus's powers. So we discussed about the multifunctional use of his powers, but also how he kind of needs to charge up, and you see him in the comic as well, basically just pacing up and down, waiting for time to go by for him to actually charge up. And I like those constraints. I think Monchin and Shinkovich have done really well in creating a character that has constraints and has a cool power set. So I found the powers pretty cool. How about you? Actually, I wonder, Connor, there's Ebon Energy. You reckon it would be? I wonder if it's ever tied to the what is the other dark one? The Dark Force. Maybe not, but they look very similar visually, basically because they're black. I just wonder if that's a connection with that somehow. How about your next aspect, Connor?
Yeah, well, I'll jump to my aspect, joining with you on Morpheus.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love. I think, I just brought up the fact that Sinkovich had and worked with Munch to create this character. It's such distinct visual language and, written language with him here. And I just love him as a character, and I love how tragic he is, and especially in this issue I always see him go more insane. I think my favourite part of him is displaying that insanity with how fast and frantic he talks. Like, you're right, he just paces back and forth, and there's 100 words per second when he talks about, I need to build a palace.
Yeah.
There's no dream palace, and I need money. And he just so frantically runs from thing to thing in an attempt to satiate revenge and build an empire.
Yeah, definitely. Can you imagine how wired you would feel if you had never, if you had a lack of sleep, and you would be crazy. Like, there've been times when I was back when I was studying at uni, we'd do all-nighters, and you do all-nighters, or maybe even go into the next day as well, and you start getting a bit loopy, and this is very, very well portrayed here by Morpheus. A lot of talking to himself. Because they're not thought bubbles. I'm looking at it here, and he's just talking out loud. So he's definitely gone a bit loopy. But very, very cool power set with Morpheus. If I go to my third aspect, my third aspect actually ties in with yours, Connor. It was how Moon Knight is really determined as well. So I think we've crossed that. He actually calls it out in the comic as well. He strike one, strike two. He's easily beaten by Morpheus, and he actually mentions, it looks like I might be facing strike three. But luckily enough, he manages to beat him on that third go. Just his unrelenting determination to try and get him, and it shows that he uses his wits as well. So he learnt from his first two mistakes, and he decides to try and outwit Morpheus, and that's when the generator comes in.
Yeah, which was an interesting decision.
It was a very strange one, wasn't it? It was largely unexplained. It was a big gamble by Moon Knight, thinking that electricity would somehow react with the ebon energy. So it was very lucky, let's say, that it actually worked. Because, the other option would be that Morpheus shoots the generator and it explodes, killing them both. So yeah, I think he was very lucky in that regards. Yeah, have you got a fourth aspect?
Yeah, just while we're on the topic of powers, I'll go to make special mention of Sinkovich's art and with how he uses the ebon energy. There's specifically on this second page after we see the mug shots of pre and post Morpheus Alrain. There's a couple of panels I love where there's one of him Morpheus stalking through the night with all the lights and almost a sort of water type effect.
Yes.
He makes good use of glass shattering, which sort of becomes a motive with the way that his black powers almost sort of shatter the night. Like there's a lot of instances where he uses the the energy to sort of break everything around it except for this like circle of black energy, and whenever you see like the colored brain as a character is zapped by it. And there's just the visual design of Morpheus, it's terrifying. Whenever there's a proper face shot, it's just brilliant and incredibly detailed.
Yeah, just otherworldly, isn't it? And I want to touch actually on your comments on the art. I actually had these in my additional notes as well.
Cool.
What I think was really cool, what Sienkiewicz does is not only with the portraiture, as I mentioned, like you see close-up faces of Detective Flint and Peter Elrond, very kind of realistic looking faces, really cool. But what Sienkiewicz does is that he creates this this tone to the city that Moon Knight is in. It's New York, but he got guys drinking coffee with the steam coming up. You got people smoking with the smoke kind of drifting into the air. As you mentioned, the watercolory effect of the street lights. They're very simple effects, but you see them against the glass, and they just show the reflection of car headlights or traffic lights and stuff. So Sienkiewicz really does, I think, create a nocturnal world to this, and I'm wondering if Bemis and Burroughs will take a leaf out of this, because they mentioned that their comic looks like it's pretty much nighttime all the time, and this is what I get from Sienkiewicz's work here. It's really great. Very cool. I do like the idea about the glass there as well, Connor. There's a lot of glass shattering, and the ebon energy. The visuals for that is cool as well. It's almost like mottled. It's like someone's dabbed, like art-wise, like Bill Sienkiewicz has like dabbed around the black.
Yeah.
It's kind of got a not web-like. It's it's a very nice texture. But great stuff about the art.
All right. Well, would you like to move on to your final aspect then, my friend?
Yeah, my final aspect was basically, again, another introduction, and that of Detective Flint.
Yep. Also my final aspect, yeah.
Oh, is it? Yeah. He's great. He's a good character that fortunately he returns again and again, and he becomes kind of a regular police contact for Moon Knight. Apart from how Sienkiewicz portrays him in the art, I love how he actually kind of resigns to the fact that, we've got a vigilante. Look, I'm not going to get in your way. I'm realistic. I know that you're doing good, so I'm going to help you. But if anyone asks you, just tell them that, you knocked me out or something. So, I like that realism that he has. He just, I don't know, in this issue, he seems quite likable already.
Yeah, that was sort of my thing of being the absolute goat. He is, he's kind of witty and snarky, but he's very sort of world-weary and understands, just how the world works. And, this kind of is how you think someone would relate to a vigilante, of helping save the day against this impossible threat.
Yeah, I mean, it gets too tropey about the police officer going, "Oh, vigilante, we've got to bring you in." I think that's been done to death. So it was good to see that. Although a lot of heroes have police contacts, it was good to see that this one, like Flint, was a bit more amenable to Moon Knight's actions. So an important introduction to the Marvel universe, and one that I hope that Bemis and Burrows will still use in their run as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Any additional notes, Connor?
Not really. I just want to make special mention of the time that randomly Moon Knight fights a panther in a park zoo.
How cool is that? Like, what a random thing to do, and he actually he beats it, right? And
yeah, he just knocks it out, and throws it in the way of his Morpheus's Ebon energy.
But like any animal lover, and I think Doug Moench probably is one, he makes sure he makes mention that the panther will wake up again, like unharmed in a few hours. So if in case anyone was worried that that Morpheus kills or slays the panther, we can be assured that he isn't. I thought the panther was funny. It was good, and it was just very random. I've just got a couple of things here. Apparently, I've read here somewhere, and I'll need verification. I don't have the evidence with me, but I have heard that first page showing the picture of Robert Markham, that is actually a portrait of Doug Moench.
Oh,
yeah. So yeah, maybe if you can have a little dig up there,
it totally
Connor.
is. It's the similar mustache and the.
Oh, okay.
Look.
Oh, you just Googled his actual face. Okay. Yeah, I've read it somewhere. I can't remember, but I found that pretty cool. Like, again, one of those things that the artists kind of get their face in there. Also, as well, me with my OCD, a bit of typo errors here. If we look at, I think the first time Marlene runs to Moon Knight, she calls him Steven, Steven, and then later on in the issue, the letterer. Who's the letterer again? He spells Steven Stephen. So Marlene calls him Steven twice. A little bit of a goof there, but I'm sure we can. I'm going to stick to with a V. I reckon. I think I've seen that mostly.
Yeah, it does change quite often, actually. I know we've read a couple of the one-offs. I think in the Marvel preview, the first one we ever did, it was PH.
So someone's got to make a decision here. Someone's got to make an executive decision. Is he a VEN or a PHEN? But anyway, that's just one of those little points. Also, I had if we go back to. So again, that first appearance where Marlene rushes to Mark or to Moon Knight, she dresses him. So bear with me here, Connor. So he jumps down from who knows where, probably the helicopter, and she runs to him, and she refers to him as Steven, right? And he says, and if you look at the panel below, he takes off his mask and goes, "Just give me time to change to Stephen Grant." Okay, now if we take the personalities as totally independent of each other, when she's running to him, isn't that Moon Knight? It's not Steven, right?
Yeah, no, it was that was something that was very stark to me, that almost seemed like Munch forgot what he was setting up here.
So it's very complicated as to how these personalities interrelate to each other. It seems that, like, whoever Mark Spector / Steven / Jake / Moon Knight is, this entity has a grasp of all the personalities and can kind of pick and choose, and change quickly. But yeah, and it just seems that they're not totally separate as well. So it makes it quite a complex personality, I guess. And also the last little additional note I had was, okay, again, bear with me, Connor. If you cast it to the last page, and we have Morpheus sedated and in the psychiatric ward. Can you see that picture?
With the eyelids, apparently?
He's got eyelids. He's not meant to have eyelids. That's the whole big thing, isn't it? So I think this was like a little quick fix. Look, Bill Shinkovich, he could have at least blindfolded him or something. He's not meant to have eyelids, so I picked that one up as a little goof. Look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does have some sort of secondary eyelids, which aren't your typical eyelids. But he definitely looks asleep and happy there. So, So that was my final note for that issue. Okay, rounding off that issue 12, Connor, Crescent Dart ratings. What do you give it?
Oh, I think this is a very strong issue in a run of fantastic issues. It's a nice little one shot that led to my favorite issues. But yeah, I think just for a little one and done, I think it's a definite 4 out of 5 Crescent Darts.
Oh, nice one. And how does that compare with those other classic issues that we did? What did we do last time? We did the oh god, I can't remember already. We kind of liked that last one, didn't we?
Yeah, that was oh my god, I can't believe I forgot.
Yeah, I can't believe I forgot as well.
Oh yeah, it was the Iron Man issue.
Oh, of course, that was a good one.
Yeah.
And so you gave that one did you give that a 4 as well? Or?
Yeah. It's very much the same. It's it's just it's a short and sweet one and done that just understands the characters it's writing about. It has the advantage over that Iron Man issue for having a really great villain. But yeah, I think it's just in the right writer's hands, just pure understanding of the characters we have in front of us.
Yeah. Okay, well, if that was... Because I think I gave that one 4 Crescent Darts. I really did enjoy that Iron Man issue. Actually, I really did enjoy it. So, I really did enjoy this one too, but I'll give it... I'll give it 3.75 Crescent Darts. I'll go into decimals because I'm just too lenient on my marking. So, 3.75 I think is still a highly respectable score, and... look, I'd give it 4 if I could, but just to compare it with the Iron Man issue, I'll give it just a little bit less. I do like Morpheus in it, and the introduction of Detective Flint. It's got it's got all the bells and whistles that you want on a Moon Knight comic. You got Doug Moench and Shinkovich. A very, very solid issue.
For sure.
Yeah. So Loonies, those were the 2 books covered for this episode. Next week, Connor, we have a big one happening.
Yeah, this is very exciting, and we will be doing, as we probably will, the start of every arc, a panel-by-panel review of Moon Knight, Lemire's Moon Knight, issue 6. If you remember our first episode, we did that with issue 1 of the arcs. We'll just be going panel by panel, talking about how it sets up the arc, everything it's sort of doing here.
Yeah, and that was really fun to do, so I'm looking forward to actually doing that again, and we'll only be focusing on that one issue, so it will give us a bit more room to breathe with a panel-by-panel analysis. But I'm sure there's plenty to unpack on that issue, especially with the new artists on board, which is really cool. We also had, we've still got to discuss this with Connor as well. I've got here on the notes as well, Connor, another potential character spotlight.
Yes.
Not necessarily next week, but it could be next week. We'll see how we go. But this was a request from Adam, from our Loony Bin on the chat, and he mentioned that Stained Glass Scarlet would be a good character to spotlight.
For sure, one of my faves. Everyone's faves, I think.
I think, definitely. She's in a grey area, isn't she, of hero and villain or vigilante? So she would be good to cover. So we'll keep you posted. Just keep an eye out on our on all our social media, what we do. As always, we are contactable on on email, moonknightpodcast@gmail.com. We also are on Facebook, so we have facebook.com/ITK Moon Knight, which is our Facebook page. We also have a Facebook group, Into the Night, a Moon Knight fan base. That's facebook.com/groups/Into the Nights, with a K. Yep. We're on Twitter @ITK Moon Knight. We're also on Instagram and Tumblr. Just search for ITK podcast or ITK Moon Knight. We should be there. And where can they hear us, Connor?
They can find us on all good podcast catcher, because we love them all.
Mhm.
You can find us on SoundCloud with our own dedicated RSS feed, or you can find us on our blog, intothenightpodcast.wordpress.com, with all these links to everywhere we exist online. It's real nice.
Exactly, and don't forget our if you'd like to jump on our mailing list as well, and we'll have Over the Moon to you, which is usually published every Tuesday night Eastern Standard Time, and that will just give you a heads up on what the upcoming podcast will be. Ergo, what we just mentioned previously, which was the issue 6 of the new arc. So, all exciting stuff.
Yes.
Alrighty, well, that's it from us. We'll catch you next week, and I'll have to throw it to Connor again.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for listening, as always, and may Khonshu protect the denizens of the night. Maybe. Might be incredibly evil. Catch ya.
See ya.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.